know you've reached peak couple energy when your undies match. MeUndies Match Me has you both covered. Literally, in super soft ultra-modal undies, socks, PJs, and loungewear. Festive prints? Check. Cozy vibes? Double check. And right now, it's deal season. Get up to 50% off site-wide for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Take your couple game to the next level with MeUndies Match Me. To get deals up to 50% off, go to MeUndies.com/comfort, promo code COMFORT. That's MeUndies.com/comfort, code COMFORT.
A former Navy SEAL working as a cook must save a battleship and its nuclear weapons from terrorists. Join us as we chat about the only episode of Baywatch you need to see, how long it takes to set up band equipment, and the other kind of side piece. Then we find out if Under Siege stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with the glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Test of Time. I'm James Brief, and joining me, as always, is the director of this podcast, my buddy, my co-host, Alan Noah. How you doing, Al?
I am doing very well, thank you, James. Today, we are going to be talking about Under Siege. This is our first Steven Seagal movie that we've ever done on the podcast. Yes, I know he was in Executive Decision for a couple of minutes, but that is not a Steven Seagal movie. Also, I think you could make the argument that Tommy Lee Jones steals Under Siege, but really, it's a Seagal movie. His name is, first in the credits. His face was on the poster. And before we get into the movie and, all of the things that Steven Seagal had to do with the movie, I do think that it is worth just taking a minute or two and talking about Steven Seagal, the person who fucking sucks. He has been credibly accused of sexual harassment, groping, forcing himself on women, rape. Katherine Heigl said that he had girlfriends that were the same age as her when they were filming Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. She was 16 at the time. Pamela Anderson said that she was going to be cast in this movie, Under Siege 1. Seagal said that she had to sleep with him first, and she refused. Jenny McCarthy said that Seagal asked her to undress during an audition. There was also the whole thing about his reality show, Steven Seagal, Lawman.
Right. He was he was a deputized cop or something. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah. And so there was one episode where he and the local sheriff were going to bust a cockfighting ring, and they brought SWAT, and they brought tanks, and allegedly they killed the guy's dog. Also, every stunt coordinator who's ever worked with him has called him an asshole and says he goes out of his way to hit them for real because he's threatened. He also really, really loves some shitty political leaders. Rodrigo Duterte, Maduro. Steven Seagal loves Vladimir Putin and has for a long time. Even before, it was kind of mainstream in the Republican Party to like him, Seagal's just a big, big fan of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. So basically, all of this is to just say, fuck that guy. Fuck Steven Seagal.
And, I would mention a shout out to the very famous Behind the Bastards. That's another famous podcast. They did a very famous series on Steven Seagal. And it's a very interesting run.
Okay. No promises, but I will do my best to focus my criticisms from here on out about Steven Seagal in the movie Under Siege and not about him as a person, but it needed to be said. So, with all of that said, James, why don't you tell our listeners what Under Siege is all about, in case anyone hasn't seen the movie?
Under Siege is a movie about Casey Ryback, a former Navy SEAL turned cook aboard the battleship USS Missouri, when a group of mercenaries, led by ex-CIA operative Stranix and traitor Commander Krill, hijack the ship to steal its nuclear arsenal. Ryback becomes the crew's only hope. Using his elite combat skills, he wages a one-man war against the terrorists, dismantling their plan and saving the vessel.
Right. So I don't need to ask you if this was a hit, because I remember that this was a huge, huge hit for Seagal when it came out in 1992. But give me some impressive numbers. How much money did it make, James?
Oh, it made a lot of money.
Oh.
It had a relatively modest $35 million budget, and it opened at number one on October 9th, 1992, with $15.7 million, on its way to $83 million domestically, $156 million worldwide.
Wow.
That's more than a 5 times multiplier domestically. It spent 4 weekends at number one. This is interesting. At the time of its release, this was the most successful film of all time that had not been screened by any critic prior to its release.
That's common practice now.
It's not uncommon to do it, but
okay, fair.
You have to understand where Steven Seagal was at this time. He practices this martial arts called Aikido, and it's more of this kind of defensive martial arts rather than offensive. You throw a punch at him, and he'll take your punch and make you flip over, that kind of thing. And he was discovered by some producer, was working in his gym. He starred in this movie, Above the Law, which was actually directed by Andrew Davis, very accomplished director, who directed this film, Under Siege. It was a surprise hit. So you probably remember when we were kids that there would be all these Steven Seagal films, generally 3-word films: Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and Out for Justice. And then he gets this $35 million film, and it's directed by Andrew Price, who did not want to work with Steven Seagal again, but they interestingly promised him that you'd mostly be working with Tommy Lee Jones, and Steven Seagal is going to be in less than half of the film. Tommy Lee Jones is in a lot more of this film than you'd imagine.
Oh, yeah.
He's in this film way more than Hans Gruber is in Die Hard.
Yeah.
And even the writer of this film is the same writer that wrote Pretty Woman. His original film, Dreadnought, was going to be this $100 million film, and nukes go off, and aircraft carriers are sunk, and I think another battleship is sunk, and they basically said, yeah, scale that back, and we have this other guy under contract, Steven Seagal, and they rewrote the film for Seagal.
Right. It is interesting that, Andrew Davis decided to reteam with Seagal, not because of Seagal, but kind of more in spite of Seagal, really for Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones is unhinged in this movie. He is so fun to watch. He kind of almost out-crazies Busey. I don't know if Tommy Lee Jones is known to be eccentric in real life. Busey has definitely leaned into that persona, but both of them have played over-the-top characters before, and you could make the argument that maybe in your action movie you need one villain who's crazy and over the top, maybe not two, have one who's crazy and over the top and one who's maybe more cold and calculating. But the two of them play off of each other pretty well, and even though they're both crazy, it does kind of work.
Well, Tommy Lee Jones is an Academy Award-winning actor, and Gary Busey, did he win the Academy Award? I think he was either nominated or he won the Academy Award for Buddy Holly.
I'm not sure.
I believe in the 80s or something. I think he got into some like traumatic brain injury, like a motorcycle accident or something.
Oh, yeah, that sounds
like,
familiar.
I don't know if you were a fan of Entourage, but he was on Entourage, and he plays like an exaggerated version of himself. Basically, he plays an insane Gary Busey.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's sane enough to have played that role, but he's a fantastic actor, and a lot of the supporting cast very good too. You have Cole Meany. He's a henchman a lot of times. That Irish bad guy, the one that Erika Leniak's character kills.
There's Glenn Morshower, who I remember from 24. He was Secret Service agent Aaron Pierce.
Right. Erika Leniak, she plays Miss July in the film, and Erika Leniak, the actual woman, she was Miss July of Playboy in 1989.
Yeah,
she was on Baywatch. I think she did a perfectly good job on in this film. Surprisingly so.
She's fine in the movie. She, by the way, has not made any allegations about Steven Seagal. She kind of even made some joke about the Pam Anderson thing that, well, he didn't proposition me. Maybe he just wanted to sleep with her. And she kind of said that in a jokey manner. even though it's not really funny, but whatever. The thing that I remembered about her in this movie from when I saw it as a teenager was the gratuitous nudity, which was a thing in the 90s. If you had an action movie, there would be boobs because the kids want to see them. This is obviously before the internet. You could see Erica Eleniak naked if you had a copy of the July 1989 Playboy issue. Otherwise, this was your chance.
Right. This was one of those movies that played on HBO a lot, and one of those films they would say, this movie is rated R, and then they'd say violence and brief nudity.
Yeah, and I agree with you. She's fine. She holds her own in this movie. Is she an amazing actress? No, but she's fine.
You know what? I have no idea. I've never seen Baywatch, and I never saw anything else she was in.
You've never seen an episode of Baywatch?
I've actually never seen Baywatch, ever.
Okay. I mean, it's not great, but it's worth to see an episode just to get a feel for it. And by the way, if you've watched one episode of Baywatch, you've seen every episode of Baywatch. I think I've seen probably like 3, and they were all exactly the same.
All right. Well, I'll watch the episode. I think it was on for about 9 seasons.
Yeah, something like that.
I think a very common thing people talk about in any film is that the film is usually only as compelling as the villain is compelling. And I think Stranix is great. I like the way Tommy Lee Jones plays him. I like his intelligence. I also like his insanity.
Well, let's take a minute to unpack Stranix's plan. So first off, there is a line that he says several times. He says, "Welcome to the revolution." That is intriguing, right? This guy has commandeered a USS battleship with nuclear weapons, and he's saying, "Welcome to the revolution." What revolution? What is this revolution that he's talking about? And when he calls the war room, he is batshit. I have the line here. He says, "Chaos and bedlam are consuming the entire world. UV light waves are only the beginning, Tom. We have an inch of topsoil left." And then the guy says, "Topsoil?" And he goes, "Sexually transmitted diseases, deforestation, irreversibly progressive depletion of the global gene pool. It all adds up to oblivion, pal." He's talking about a lot of really strange things, and I was just really hooked to see what his plan was, because I'd seen the movie before, but I didn't really remember. He hangs up the phone, and then he says, "Well, do you think they bought it?" And I was like, God damn it. It was all just an act, because it turns out that their plan is just to sell the nuclear weapons and make a lot of money. Okay, fine, I get that. But one, that's just lazy writing. You've seen that in a million movies, that the bad guys are motivated by money. And two, if they were going to do that as a twist, that he doesn't really care about topsoil and UV waves, okay, cool, but save that for later. Let him play. You have Tommy Lee Jones here. He can be insane and fun to watch. Just let him go. Why would you admit right away that, nah, it was all just an act? That pissed me off.
Well, you mentioned we've seen this a million times. I think specifically we've seen this one time. This is exactly the scene in Die Hard, I think. This is the scene when Hans Gruber calls the FBI and he acts insane and he goes, "I want you to free the 12 Libyan brothers that are here and the 12 of these people." I think it's the same exact distraction. I think that he wants them to think that he's absolutely apeshit insane, which he also might be.
Right, at the end, he does kind of go off.
The only complaint I would have, it's almost a carbon copy of Hans Gruber's misdirection in Die Hard. So it's Die Hard on a boat, and there's going to be a lot of things that are by the numbers. But what you said earlier about welcome to the revolution, I can't understand why he would say that to his own henchmen, unless the other thing is if this is a Die Hard 2 situation where not all the henchmen know that this is a robbery. Maybe they think this is some kind of revolution, but I doubt it. I think that they're all waiting to get rich.
I do want to unpack the Die Hard on a boat thing, because we could spend an hour going through both movies, pointing out what they have in common and what the differences are. Or we could just do the really short version, which is that the main difference is Die Hard has Bruce Willis, who is charming and charismatic and fun to watch. You're rooting for John McClane. You want him to get back with his wife. Steven Seagal is none of those things. Steven Seagal, the guy, he has no charisma. Ryback, the character, is not compelling. He's not really interesting. You're not really rooting for him. He is boring as shit. He has so many quote unquote one-liners. None of them are funny. Or maybe the one is funny when he says to the one guy, "Oh, I'm not going to see you for a week. I guess I won't see you hit puberty." That's mildly amusing.
I like when he keeps telling the private to get his pies out of the oven. Get my pies out of the oven.
Whatever. Also, you see John McClane fucking beat up. He gets the shit kicked out of him. And Steven Seagal doesn't. I remember from one movie, I thought it was this one, but it wasn't. There's a Steven Seagal movie where he gets shot and he just like keeps moving. It doesn't even like knock him back. He doesn't bleed. He wants to look as tough as possible. He can't lose a fight. I don't think a single henchman like lands a punch on him in this entire movie.
Stranix gets like one little nick of blood on him with the knife fight at the end.
And then that cut is kind of like gone after that. Yeah. I mean, the grappling hook goes into his back and he's hurt for about 7 seconds of screen time. He is effectively invincible in this movie. He's just not a compelling character.
I will give you that he's not charismatic, but I do find the character compelling because he's a cook. The captain says, you know, if I had your ribbons, I would wear them to sleep or something. There's some line he says there. It's a throwaway line. And then we slowly learn he's special forces or
Navy SEAL?
Something like that. Yeah, and, you know, one of the admirals, Chief Ryback, yeah, I know him. Wish he was on this mission. Actually, sir, he might be. He's on the Missouri. There's also some backstory between Ryback and Stranix, which that is annoying that we never find out really what that is.
Oh, that's so annoying. That's stupid. Apparently, that's based on a previous draft of the script.
Right.
An early draft of the script had a scene that was like a flashback. And okay, fine, that was in the script and then was cut. But then cut that line because it doesn't make any sense that these two know each other. Also, Ryback's backstory is kind of maybe interesting that, okay, he was on a mission in Panama and he did such a good job, but the intel was bad. So he punched his commanding officer.
And was that maybe Stranix?
If so, cool, say it.
I think your first answer is more likely the better answer. It was in an earlier draft.
But also, Stranix has a backstory. He was supposed to destroy this North Korean sub, but of course, no, he didn't. And that's how they're going to smuggle the nukes off. But Stranix has history with one guy in the war room. And that means something, clearly. Like, we spend time with that one dude in the war room who doesn't want to admit what happened with Stranix.
Suit guy.
Yeah. And that doesn't pay off at all.
Yeah, who is he?
Couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Like, did he do something illegal or did he fuck up? Or it was unclear. And they also say, if anything goes wrong, we'll just blame it on the cook.
Right, so does he have backstory with Ryback too? Maybe? I don't know.
I thought his entire character should have been cut out of the film.
Suit guy,
yeah. Or let him be the guy that was like stupid enough to okay this quote-unquote surprise party for the captain or something. I didn't know what he fucked up with, and I've never understood that, and I've seen this film several times.
Well, let's talk about that surprise party. I'm glad you brought that up. I know next to nothing about the military, but it does seem to me that if you are the captain of a nuclear battleship, you just don't get surprise parties. Sorry, that's just not in the cards for you. Because of course it wouldn't be. And the captain does kind of say something like, you thought you could land a helicopter without my knowledge? Well, I'm the captain. Of course I'm going to know. So yeah, they do acknowledge it, but it's just really stupid. Also, is it the case that all of the bad guys that take over the Missouri are on that one helicopter? Is that right?
Yeah.
That's really, really hard to swallow. I'll buy that it's a bigger than normal helicopter, but there's a ton of Navy guys on that ship. It just seems highly unlikely that, what was it, 20, 30, 40 something guys would be able to completely overpower everyone on the ship. Yes, they have Krill as their man in the inside. That's Gary Busey's character. But it seems like they would need a fuck ton more guys on the inside in order to make this happen.
If they could get Krill on the inside, then there should be a couple other random henchmen that, sell out their country for this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
They should have made some kind of backstory about how it's a ceremony weekend, because I think it was like Pearl Harbor weekend or something.
Yeah, it's the 50th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack.
Right. So do they mention that a lot of the crew is gone, or?
No.
That's what they should have done. It should have been like, there's 50 battleships in the area, so we don't need to have a full crew right now in Pearl Harbor.
They have President George H.W. Bush there, so they could have said after that half of the crew departed. There is a line where one guy says that we're working with a skeleton crew as it is.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, you're right. They do.
But still, we see a ton of guys being marched down to the forecastle or whatever part of the ship.
And none of them have a side piece.
Do you mean a mistress?
A pistol, Al.
Oh, okay. That kind of side piece.
Yes. Some of them fight back for a moment. Stannis comes and shoots the guy that got into the fight, and then shoots the next guy in the head.
Right.
Very cold. He says, "If you rebel, we will kill you and the person next to you." That's a classic manipulation move. Full Metal Jacket, or it's not Private Pyle that has to do push-ups because they find a donut in his trunk. Everyone else in the bunk has to do push-ups while you get to eat this donut, Private Pyle. It's a compelling thing. I'll rebel, but I don't know that the guy next to me is willing to do this. But that being said, I still think there's enough men on this boat that know that there's nukes on this boat. I think you make a point that there should have been another reason. Maybe there should have been a couple rebellions. Maybe kill 5 of them and just say, if you try to do anything, if you don't look straight at the back of the soldier's head in front of you, we will kill the next 10 people. Something like that.
Also, we just have to unpack a little bit of the mechanics of this surprise party. So Stranix comes on as part of the band, and then Krill gets dressed up as Miss July 1989 as part of the surprise party. Why? They don't need to do that. It kind of seems like Krill got dressed up in drag because Krill wanted to get dressed up in drag, which is fine. Hey, more power to you. I guess this is before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Cool if you want to get dressed up as a woman, but that just seems unnecessary for their takeover plot. Although what seems even more unnecessary is Stranix in a fucking band. Why do they pretend to be a goddamn band? He specifically says time is money. They are working against the clock to offload these nukes. And they go through all of this trouble, this entire ruse of they're a rock band playing a surprise party. Have you ever seen a band set up? Do you know how long it takes to unpack the instruments and plug in the amps and run the wires? That takes a lot of fucking time, man. Why? To play 2 songs and then start shooting people? Just skip the playing 2 songs in a band part.
I think I can answer all of those.
Okay.
1, this is not a band that brought their own equipment. They're using the drum set that's on the ship.
Why is there a drum set on a nuclear battleship?
Because a battleship has some kind of rec hall. There's some instruments there for R&R, I guess. That's what I'm going to assume.
Okay, a stretch, but fine.
Second, why don't they just get off the Chinook helicopter and just start killing everyone? And I think it's obvious why they don't, because they say at one point that it's mandatory that all crewmen have to report to the captain's party. And I can't think of another reason why these random people that are not soldiers will all be in this area. I think it's good enough there for them to be the band members. And then the third question you had, why does he dress up in drag? any kind of distraction. Just get the guys' minds off of what's going on. Or if they notice this saxophone player sucks, or maybe they can't play instruments, or maybe there's something wrong with them, Gary Busey and drag, that'll definitely distract them. And the second reason is more for the movie, because there is I think, a very funny line after they started murdering everyone and they've taken over the ship, they murder the captain, and then a disgruntled Krill, he's looking through his own military service record, and it's like psychiatric problems, he's a nutcase, he has the makeup on, and he's got enormous like balloons in his chest that are like the fake the asymmetrical boobs, and he goes, do I look like a guy that needs a psychological evaluation? I think that's why they put it in there. Otherwise, it really doesn't serve a purpose for the movie.
Getting everyone in the mess hall, just give them food and beer, and they'll all be there, and they'll all be distracted. I get it for the movie, and it makes it more visual, and yada, 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 but it doesn't stand up to much scrutiny. Also, Ryback is in the freezer for a very long time. That just kind of sidelines the character. It sidelines Steven Seagal, who is ostensibly the star of the movie. But also, he's in a meat locker. They say it's 40 degrees. Sure doesn't look it. I think maybe I've asked you this before, but you don't watch The Bear, right?
I saw the first episode.
Oh, okay. I bring it up because there's an episode where he gets trapped in a meat locker, and guess what? You see that it's cold. You can show that visually by having, the little frost bites in the eyebrows. You can see the breath every time they exhale, and none of that is there when Ryback is in the meat locker.
Good point.
Maybe that's because, Steven Seagal can't be hurt. He is invincible, so he also can't get cold in a meat locker or something. I don't know. But yes, it's an action movie, but when there are things like the meat locker, the rock band for no reason, that removes any sense of believability. And I do think there are moments in this movie where they are going for some believability with the military equipment and the protocols and the procedures. But there's also a part kind of halfway, 2/3 through the movie where Ryback stumbles upon a group of good guys that are trapped in a room. And then all of a sudden, they, along with Miss July 1989, who refuses to touch a gun or shoot anyone, they become super soldiers who are capable of fighting back against this terrorist mercenary group. It's like, wait, how did that fucking happen?
My problem with the crew that they find at the end that becomes a bigger help, which they need because they're going to need more than just Casey Ryback to load those huge shells. I mean, you physically can't do it by yourself.
Sure.
So you need some Navy guys to do it. My problem is there's a couple times in the film they kind of forget that there's still 20 terrorists going around, and I feel like what they're doing is incredibly loud. And yes, they figure it out once they explode the shells and the starbursts or whatever, but I just know while they're even loading this stuff, how is nobody hearing this? And when the captain is murdered, later Ryback makes it to the captain's quarters, and he kneels down very respectfully and pulls his coat over him, but the door is open behind him, and I noticed his back is to the door.
Oh, wow. Honestly, when he goes back to look for the captain and finds him dead, I actually did find that realistic, because Ryback would know that they killed him, and yet he would still go to check. That is what he has to do. That's what he should do. That's what he would do. For the 1 in a million chance that maybe they attacked him and didn't kill him, maybe he's alive, you have to go and find the ranking officer on that ship.
I don't mind he went there. Close the door. Just close it. And they can't sneak in without turning the knob or breaking the glass or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think maybe Ryback tells Erika Leniak, I think he does tell her to quiet down. She bangs on the locker. He does tell her if you keep banging, they're going to kill you.
Right. Also, he shoves her in a fucking locker. Yeah. On what fucking planet is that a good idea?
He could put her in any random room and say, hide under the bed or in a closet, not a locker.
Yeah, stuffing her in a locker is just cruel. Also, she was just stuffed in a cake. They do explain how she was able to not notice all of the gunfire because she took too many of those pills because she had motion sickness. I think that's a stretch, but fine. I'll give them the credit that they offered some explanation.
Yeah, the motion sickness absolutely can make you drowsy. It could be just Benadryl even. Sometimes it's just Benadryl.
And he told her to take 2 and she takes a whole big handful.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Fine. But even still, then the cake moves and she jumps out and starts dancing. Wouldn't she then still be drowsy? I don't know. I think the A to B to C logic is still iffy there. I think there are some kills that are supposed to be cool. That kind of thing doesn't really do much for me. But Ryback rips out a guy's Adam's apple. I guess that's a thing you could do.
Only guys who want to fuck you like they fucked guys in prison, because that's a roadhouse move.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's not an Aikido move. I don't believe that's Aikido.
I'm going to go ahead and assume you're right on that. He also does a slow-mo double stab into one guy's armpit, which is just weird that that's a move. It's weird that it's in slow-mo. Maybe when I was a teenage boy and I saw the Adam's apple get ripped out, I thought that was cool. But I don't know why I would think a double armpit stab would be so cool. I'd need to see that in slow-mo.
I actually kind of do think it's cool.
Oh, Jesus. Why? Explain it. I want you to explain why, please.
The double stab is cool. I don't think the slow-mo double stab is necessary.
Okay.
Because it's stabby. That's better than stab.
I guess. The slow-mo does come back when he fights Stranix at the end. He gouges out his eye, then stabs him in the head, and then shoves his head through a monitor. Okay, maybe you need slow-mo there because it's the final villain, but also then it's kind of easier to see that ain't Tommy Lee Jones, either stunt double or just a plastic head or whatever that they used. It doesn't look great.
I kind of think it's really cool final death for a bad guy. I'm sorry. Like, stabby is cool. Stab in the skull and throw your stabbed skull into a monitor. That's pretty awesome. I'm going to spoil a 25-year-old video game, but one of the best endings of a video game I'd ever played is The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. You fight Ganon at the end. He swings a sword at you, but you dodge it, and then you make this really high jump. And do you remember how you kill Ganon?
Yeah, you stab him in the head.
You stab him right through the top of his head.
I remember thinking that was weird. Also, that's not Ganon. That's Ganondorf. Ganon is a pig beast. Ganondorf is a dude.
I stand humbly corrected. You are absolutely correct. Anyway, I think stabby in the head is awesome. You are correct that I did not believe that Tommy Lee Jones got a knife stabbed into his skull. It did not look like Tommy Lee Jones' skull.
Right, it didn't. Also, while we're at the end, there's an idea that's brought up earlier in the movie that if Ryback isn't successful in getting the nukes off of the ship, then they're going to have to just blow up the USS Missouri. They don't want to do that, but they will. But also, like, those stakes totally disappear. At the end of the movie, Stranix fires off a missile towards Honolulu, not really for any purpose other than just he's pissed that he lost, because at that point, Ryback and his ragtag team has blown up the submarine with all the nuclear weapons, and the military shoots down one of the missiles. Ryback's able to stop the other one with the code that he got from Stranix after he killed him, blah, 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 blah. But then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I guess we can call off those planes that were going to blow up the Missouri. Oh yeah, good. Like, that should have been a thing that was happening. Like, those planes are coming close and he has to work fast, because otherwise, even if they stop the missile heading to Honolulu, all of them are going to die. You know, like, that's a way to ramp up the stakes, and you've written it. Like, that's in the script. Add to the tension at the end, and they just don't.
Once they fire the Tomahawks at Honolulu, they should have blown up the battleship by that. You know, now a million people in Honolulu are going to die. They get saved. But let me ask you, Al, what do you think about 1992's Under Siege? Does it stand the test of time? We know Steven Seagal doesn't, but what do you think of the film?
I think this is a shitty movie. Even though I don't always love dumb action movies, usually they'll hold my attention more than this movie did. I was bored. Honestly, I was just rolling my eyes through so much of it. So much of the dialogue is wooden. Seagal's delivery is awful. Also, by the way, Steven Seagal doesn't look that tough. I'm not saying compared to me. I'm saying compared to the contemporary action stars of this time. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme, those guys look shredded. If you watch movies from, late 80s, early 90s, their muscle definition is just like, holy fucking shit, man. Seagal looks tough, I guess, but he doesn't look that fucking intimidating. Could he kick my ass? Probably. Although then, in 1992, definitely. Now, I don't know. He's kind of doughy these days. But whatever. The point is, he's not physically intimidating. He's not charming. He's not funny. He's not interesting. He's nothing. I do like seeing batshit insane Gary Busey. I love watching batshit Tommy Lee Jones. He steals the movie. When he's on screen, then I wasn't bored. I enjoyed watching him, but I think the movie is nonsense. Like the plot is at best a copy of other movies, but more realistically, a pretty shitty imitation of better movies. Honestly, I think calling it Die Hard on a Boat is horrifically insulting to Die Hard. I get it, yes, but I just don't think this movie is worthy of being associated with Die Hard in any way, shape, or form. And no, I do not think this movie stands the test of time. I think you like the movie more than I did, but do you think it stands the test of time, James?
Yes, I do think this film stands the test of time. Steven Seagal,
brother.
not a great guy, and he's not a good actor.
No.
But Casey Ryback doesn't need to be a good actor in this film, and the fantastic other actors do all the heavy acting lifting. I think the film is very well directed. I think the film is short, tight. I think Seagal does a fine enough job in what he needs to do. I never really thought about it till you brought it up in this podcast, but I don't really like Casey Ryback. I think I'm rooting for him to save all those soldiers and Hawaii and everything. But yeah, I don't really care about him as much. I don't want Miss July to die, and I feel bad for everyone that dies pretty much. There's this one girder, and it is hanging by a slip knot. And this 2-ton girder, which is hanging like a pencil, just falls straight down and impales this guy. It's a cool kill, but this is the first time I ever thought, like, why is that there? And being held by one knot.
Yeah.
But, that's action movie stuff. Stranix finally gets Ryback, and he sneaks up on him and puts a handgun to his head. Just shoot him. Kill him. He's dead, but they have to do their knife fight. And also, why does Ryback hold a knife in like he's almost going to slit his own wrist? And
it's weird.
It's a really cool look, but it doesn't make any sense. But turn your brain off, and the movie's good. You know who really liked this film or really liked the direction of this film?
Oh, I know what you mean. Harrison Ford.
That's right.
Because then he agreed to do The Fugitive with this director and with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes. I think the film works in spite of Steven Seagal and in spite of some of the holes in the film. What's interesting? The only other Steven Seagal films that have a fresh Rotten Tomato score, they are Executive Decision, where he's killed, very quickly in the film.
Right.
And the other one is Machete, and he's kind of in the film. So I do find it interesting that all the films that Steven Seagal is in that are fresh are films that he's not in for the majority of the film.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Maybe not. But for me, yeah, it stands the test of time in spite of Mr. Seagal.
Fine. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Searching for Bobby Fischer. This is a movie that I've never seen, I've heard of. It seems like it will be heartwarming, maybe? I'm hoping it'll be more heartwarming than Under Siege, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that. In the meantime, we want to hear from you guys. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Write to us. Let us know your thoughts on Under Siege, on Steven Seagal, on Tommy Lee Jones, on Gary Busey, on battleships, on nuclear weapons, on all of the things. We love hearing from you. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.